See, the nature of being human is this. If you give me 2 minutes. See, there are 4 dimensions of our mind. In modern societies, the nature of our education has constipated our mind in such a way because we are just largely using just one dimension, which we call as the intellect. The other dimensions of mind, if I have to use Indian terminology, it means buddhi, ahankara, manas and chitta. What buddhi means is the intellect. You do what you want. The nature of the intellect is to slice things open and see. If you leave the world in the hands of your intellect will chop it into a million pieces and will want to chop it into further micro pieces and want to chop it into further micro pieces depending upon how sharp your intellect is. The sharper your intellect, the more you dissect the world. You cannot stop it because that is the nature of the intellect and it's good. So you must apply intellect only to know the material aspects of life. You can't know life this way. Jay, if I want to know you, can I dissect you?
No.
So, but if I want to know, if a doctor wants to know some aspect of you materially, what's wrong with you, he will take a biopsy and in a way, he opens it up and looks at it. It's okay on that level. But I can't know you as a person by dissecting you. I can't know you as a life by dissecting you. I can know a part of your body, maybe. Similarly, I can know parts of the world to make use of it, but I can't know life as such. So intellect has been over-eulogized. In the last 150 years, this is a European impact on the rest of the world, where we think our thought is supreme. Someone went to the extent of saying, I think so I exist or whatever. I want to ask all of you a simple question. Tell me, is it because we exist we may think? Or is it because we think we exist? Which way is it? Hello? Because we exist, we may think. Because people are in such a state of mental diarrhea all the time, non-stop it's going on, they think it's more of an existence than existence. But my head is all the time empty unless I want to think about something. So I know thought is not necessary, I can just live here without the thought. When I want, I will think, otherwise I'll keep quiet. Just like my hand, if I want, I use it, otherwise I keep it here. Similarly, you must be able to do this with your mind. Just because you lost control over your mind and you think it's everything because it's entering into every aspect of your life where it has no business. Thought has been over-eulogized by people. And the very nature of the thought is such that if you think, it must be logical. It cannot be any other way. Well, what somebody is thinking may look illogical to you, but they have found their own logic. The most extreme person that you have met, within himself or herself, they have their own logic, isn't it so? They are not speaking illogically as far as they are concerned. They have found their own kind of logic. Logic means it needs two. Logic means it needs division. Now, with logically you're trying to arrive at inclusive consciousness, it's not going to happen. Because you're using a knife to stitch, this is not going to work. If you use a knife to cut, it's efficient. You use a knife to stitch things together, you'll only tear it up further. So my thought and your thought, I'm telling you, whatever great meetings you have, conference, I've been to every kind of peace conference on the planet. What happens there? It's just short of war. After some time it heats up, on the second day anyway it's over, they all get drunk in the evening and they go home. If you make them stay there for a week, I'm telling you right there'll be a battle. Yes, it is true. I'm not saying this with any disdain. I made a sincere effort to participate in all these conferences at one time, believing they are going to lead to peace. But last 8 years ago, I decided I'll never again go to these events because people are professional conference attendees. They're making a living out of it. It's not about peace. So, the next dimension of intelligence is called as ahankara. Ahankara means identity. This is important, that in modern societies, we have not cultured our children to culture their identity. When I say identity, the fundamental identity for you is always your body. This racial thing that concerns him and concerns all of us. I'm darker than him, you know. I face it all the time, joyfully, but I face it everywhere I go. I have extra features which make me further discriminated. But our first identity is with the body. When we identified with the body, the color of the skin also becomes part of it. Why do we identify with the body? Because our experience is limited to this. If you say me, you mean this, isn't it? Because your experience of life is limited to this, naturally you're identified with this and this is you and this is how you look. Somebody looks so different, whether in gender or because of race or because of maybe just fashion. Who knows what makes them different? But suddenly, this is me, that's you, it's established. But we sit here in this hall, whatever the color of our skin, whatever our religion, whatever our gender, we are inhaling and exhaling the same air. But we have no issue. Body has no problem. But the identity has a problem. You're identified with something. We have not cultured our children right from an early age that your identity should be universal. This is something in India, traditionally, before you start education for a child, there's something called as Vidyarambham, where the first chant that they must do is that my identification with this entire cosmos. Without this, you should not give education to a child, that is the understanding. Because education is seen as an empowerment. You should not empower a person who has limited identifications. Because it doesn't matter whether it's of individual nature or of family or of community or race, religion, nation, it doesn't matter. Once you have limited identity, you will cause disharmony, you will cause cruel things, thinking you're doing the right thing. I know the debate, the source of… the debate always goes to ISIS and things like this. I want you to understand this. These people, looking at their actions, you may be sitting here, I know I'm getting into a minefield. Sitting here, all of us think these are horrible people. But you must understand this, they believe they are doing the greatest thing that a human being can do. They're working for God. There can be no better employer. Not Google, God.
But you've never prayed to.
Huh? That's my problem. But I'm saying, you should have seen this, you know, I'm sure you guys can Google anything. You must see, there is a press meet that the Afghan Taliban is conducting with the international media just before United States invaded Afghanistan. All these young guys with long beards and big turbans, they're all sitting like this. And they're asking questions. Just then they had, bombed that Buddha statue and they made this thing that girls should not go to school and many other things. So these kind of questions are coming. Whatever you ask them, they say, in our book, in our holy book, our prophet, our God said this, we're just doing that. I was just watching these guys, I had tears in my eyes. These are wonderful guys. These are guys who are willing to die for what they believe in. But they've been screwed up by the scriptures. Yes, these are wonderful people who are willing to die for what they think is right, all right? A man who's willing to die for what he thinks is right is a great man, but look at the consequence. Simply because of limited identity. So this ahankara, This identity is what wields the intellect. If you hold the right identity, from an early age, if it's brought into us that your identity is with the entire cosmos, because nothing happens here without everything's involvement in you. We are sitting on this round planet which is spinning and moving at a great speed in the middle of nowhere. You don't know where it begins, where it ends, this thing. And look at us sitting here and talking. How many forces in the existence are keeping you and me in place on this chair? So there is no way we can exist without the involvement of all this. But talking about this intellectually is not going to help, because if you try to understand intellectually, you're using a knife, further you will divide. So there is another dimension of intelligence within you which can make you come to an experience of this. The next dimension of intelligence is called as manas. Manas means it's a huge silo of memory. There are 8 types of memory in this. I'll just name them, I'll not go into this. These 8 types of memory are referred to as elemental memory, atomic memory, evolutionary memory, karmic memory, sensory memory, and in the karmic memory there are 2 types. One is called sanchita and prarabdha. There is a bank of memory which determines the very shape and size of your body. There's another one which is right now in play. So 2 dimensions of karmic memory. Inarticulate memory, that there is memory but you can never articulate, but it's finding expression. When you see a chair, you know this is where you should sit, not there. You didn't think about it because there is a memory in you that this is where you must sit. When you see a glass, you know this is how you must hold. This is not simple. Without this knowledge, you cannot do this. There is an enormous memory which allows you to do almost everything automatically, because an inarticulate memory is constantly in action. And there is articulate memory, which is very minuscule part of your memory. The next dimension of intelligence is most important. This is called as chitta. This is an intelligence without an iota of memory in it, unsullied by memory. See, memory means a boundary. You guys are always dealing with information. Today you're in technology. I think memory does not mean what's here, memory means all over the place. Memory is a boundary. What I know is always a boundary. What I do not know is a limitless possibility, isn't it? We have misunderstood the power of ignorance. Our knowledge is always bound within boundaries. Our ignorance is boundless. So always in the yogic system, we identified with our ignorance, never with our knowledge. This is something we must do in a technology company, because that's where the possibility is. That is where the new terrain is, in your ignorance, not in your knowledge. So, chitta is unsullied by memory, it's just pure intelligence. Right now, if you eat an apple, it turns into a human being. You cannot do it with your brains. Even your brains were created by what you eat, isn't it? There is an intelligence here which is capable of transforming anything to this, because it is making use of the memory in the manas and making this happen. But the most important dimension of your intelligence is chitta. In today's education systems, in today's social conditions, there is no effort to dip into deeper dimensions of our intelligence. We're just too enamored with our own intellect and now using this knife to stitch everything.